Yes, coach. How you doing?
It's not bad, mate. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, all good. All good.
All good. All right. So. Yes, people. What's going on? Raps on TV here to talk the best things in boxing. Packed agenda as per usual. Packed show. Looking forward to getting into this week's topics. I'm here with my co-host as per usual, Mr. Tom. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, coach. Like you said there, a packed agenda this week. I mean, as we draw closer to Christmas, things you'd expect to be dying down in the boxing world, but things seem to really be igniting, and we've got some massive shows coming up to dive into.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head there when you talk about massive shows, and I think it kind of kicked off a couple of weeks back, or nearly a month ago, but I think we're following up with another action-packed fight being headlined this week by Mr. Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor. So looking forward to getting into that. Guys, the topics this week's will be, we're going to go over the Beterbiev versus Gvozdyk fight, which took place last Friday. Good, really a fight friendly fight. Definitely one, not necessarily for the history books, but one that is going to say, you know what, sets that light heavyweight division alight because he's a tough competitor, Beterbiev. What else? Obviously, the weekend we had the Matchroom show headlined by Ritson and Davis Jr., but I think really everyone was kind of eyeing the clash between Fitzgerald and Cheeseman, which went down, to be fair, it was a good fight. So looking forward to getting into that. And then this weekend, Tom, you want to just go into this weekend's fight?
Yeah, so Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor, undisputed super lightweight championship. Obviously, we have Ramirez, who holds the WBC, but these two guys really trying to state their claim as the number one in the division. And also, I suppose, no better place to start but with our guest this week, who's appearing on the undercard, 3-0 unbeaten prospect, Austin Ammo Williams. Some of you may have heard him. He's flown across to the UK and he's been making some noise. So it's interesting to see how his career's unfolded so far. I know we've got news of an opponent that's pulled out, but obviously we'll go into that in more detail. And just really want to kind of grasp an understanding of his career and how he's kind of transitioned into the pro ranks, being taken under Matchroom's wing, and really projected as one of the top prospects in world boxing.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that. Obviously we've got Derek Chisora versus David Price, which is another interesting clash. Looking forward to that. Kind of strange dynamics in between those two in terms of where they're at in their career. Then you've also got Ricky Burns taking on Lee Selby. Again, another good potential clash in terms of, I don't want to say a senior Ricky Burns, but a man that's been through the trenches, and Lee Selby is looking to revitalise his career in this new division. So looking forward to seeing that. And of course, don't forget, we've got Coley taking on Ngavi for that
European. Yeah,
exactly. So definitely a lot of action. Nonetheless, we've also got the Conor Benn and the likes, Shannon Courtney and Austin Williams. But I think no better place to start really than probably the last weekend. Beterbiev versus Gvozdyk. What did you make of that fight, Tom?
Brutal. I mean, a lot of people said that Gvozdyk was the favourite, obviously with what happened with Adonis Stevenson, and I know again it's another kind of mellow topic that we'll come on to a little bit later. But I think in terms of the fight, it really did kind of show how fearsome Artur Beterbiev is, and really showed, you know, that this guy probably doesn't get the credit he deserves as a champion. Really concussive power, seemed to really dictate the pace of the fight, you know, from the opening bell. Gvozdyk didn't really look in himself. He looked a little bit cumbersome at times. I thought Beterbiev was really able to push him back on the back foot more than anything, and really just not allow him to do anything, not allow him to really engage at times. And I think just Beterbiev, with his sheer power, just walked him down. Wasn't afraid to take a shot and really dish out punishment. And obviously the stoppage came probably when we expected. When Beterbiev really goes through the gears, he seems to really put a hole in these light heavyweights. And again, now no one can really argue that he's not the top light heavyweight at the moment. You know, you've got Kovalev, who's going to take on Canelo. You've got Bivol, who again is another champion that really is yet to prove himself against the elite. Whereas I think Beterbiev really now, with a win like Gvozdyk, you can't really argue that on his resume. You know, a really, really good win.
Yeah, no, I think kind of what you said, just to echo that, I think from early, you kind of saw the strength of Gvozdyk. I mean, obviously, Beterbiev. I think Gvozdyk was unlucky with sort of like the early first knockdown, which was really much more of a shove and a push than it was from a punch. I think that kind of hit him. But I think overall, it just kind of showed the power that Beterbiev holds. I thought he'd done some really nice work, especially in the later rounds, which just took its toll. I think probably everyone's heard the Andre Ward comments about working the body, but it was kind of one glaringly obvious that he was able to just connect, going to the body, whether it was the big right or whether it was just kind of like a punch right on the middle of the chest. So I think it was a good performance. I think you're right when you look at that division, you think Bivol, who just fought not too long ago, you think you're looking at it and you're saying, will these guys be able to be matched up? Again, that's where the two promotional companies will come into play, and we'll see how that works on that side. But I think there's no better time after kind of a quick summary of that. If we move on to our guests, and Tom, as you said, we will be speaking today with Austin Ammo Williams, a new signee of the Matchroom stable, who's made quite a name for himself, not just by his power in terms of the KOs that he's got. He's also been touring the UK. A lot of you would have seen him with Eddie Hearn last weekend on a private jet going up to Newcastle, and he's fought in some big arenas so early in his career. So, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Ammo Williams to the show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ammo Williams.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
We're all good. Tom, do you want to lead?
Yeah, very well, Ammo. It's a pleasure having you on the platform. And again, welcome to the UK. It's good to see you back on this side of the shore. And I'm sure you. How's the overall experience been so far? Being over in the UK, being greeted by the fans on Fight Week, where we edge closer now to Saturday night.
It's been amazing, man. Everything was backwards when I first got here, of course. I'm sure y'all hear that from Americans all the time. And the weather, it's kind of cold right now. But the food is different. Everything is different. But the thing about it is I didn't come here expecting it to be like America. I didn't want it to be like America because it's my first international trip. I wanted it to be different. I wanted to experience something new, and I got a lot of new things, and I seen a lot of sights. I got to do a tour with Matchroom. They showed me, the London Bridge, and I drove by the Palace, and I've seen a lot of things here. And not only that, I'm 3-0. I'm a 3-0 fighter, but the UK fans treat me like I'm a world champion, man. I'm telling you, I was at my down in East London by Victoria Park. I was getting stopped by fans I didn't even know knew me. Then I went to Novotel Hotel down here in Greenwich, London. I was getting a lot of people asking for photos, and now I'm at the O2 Intercontinental, so I've got to see a lot of different sides. And not only that, it's my first international trip, and I've been able to be here for weeks. So it's actually like I'm living in London rather than my first international trip. I'm coming for a week and I'm going home. So this has been a great life experience for me.
It's brilliant to see. Obviously, when we see unbeaten prospects from the States come over really with high regard. Obviously Eddie Hearn, Matchroom have put a lot of faith into you. They've obviously seen you as their vision for Matchroom USA, but also bringing you over to the UK, experiencing the new realm of fans over here, also the exposure that you're going to get from Saturday night. I mean, what has the reception done for you ahead of Saturday? Has it given you a lot of confidence to really suggest that a lot of fans are going to take note of you after your win on Saturday?
Yes, I mean, they put me in a position to elevate. They put me in a position to plant the seed so I can be a true superstar, not just a world champion, not just a champion, but a true superstar. And this is just another stage, another step, just like what they set me up for in Madison Square Garden, just like what they set me up for in the Forum. I know they really believe in me, and they're showing it, and I'm sure everybody can see it now. And actually, that fuels me because you have a standard to live up to. So it's not just, some professional fighters, all they thinking about is winning the fight. They're not thinking about planting the seed. They're not thinking about taking a step and being a superstar. They don't have any of that pressure on them. So to get up when it sucks and when they're tired and go run and stuff like that, it's not that big of a deal because they don't have this much stuff on right in their plate. Me, I have so much that I have to live up to, and it's fun for me because I love to box, and I think that's the way that you become the greatest fighter that you can be, or the greatest whatever that you are, is being submerged in a situation where you have to elevate. I don't have a choice. I have to get better. And not only that, you got to think about it this way. They putting me on these stages in front of everybody, right? Where everybody can see, right off the jump, right off the gate.
Yeah.
They're putting me on a stage where everybody can see and study me. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I have to get better. I have to come to a fight different because if my last fight was viewed by the world, that means everybody can study that ammo, that version of ammo. So can I plateau? Can I peak? Can I stay the same? Absolutely not, because people may think that they had a blueprint of me, and that just makes me go harder and more excited to work with world champions and take things from world champions and just continue to elevate myself. They put me in a position where I have to get better.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at your record at the moment, I mean, you seem to be creating a name for yourself as a formidable puncher, 100% knockout ratio. I mean, can we expect to see another side to you on Saturday, your skill set? I mean, really showcasing what you've got in terms of your fundamentals to the UK fans, or are you really kind of looking to, again, put on a show with an explosive knockout?
I just got my opponent switched literally today. My first opponent that I had was a 6-1 guy from Spain, never been knocked out before. And that definitely was my intention, was to go and put on another explosive performance and show that I could stop a guy who's never been stopped in 7 fights. And that would make my stock rise, and let me really show who I am. Now I got a different guy. He's never been stopped before. He's 1-3. He's a come forward fighter, head down fighter, and with a fighter like that, I still am going to try to knock him out. And I'm going to use a little bit more skills, show a little bit more of my boxing side.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of my style, which I want to showcase on Saturday, is that even when I'm boxing, I can box beautifully, and it's still to hurt. It's still to take the guy out. It's still to bloody the guy or whatever, even when I'm boxing. So that's what I want to do. I definitely want to go for the knockout. I'm going for the knockout. A lot of fighters are scared to say they're going for the knockout because they think about, hey, what if I don't get it? No, I'm going for the knockout. I am. No matter what style the guy is, that's what I pride myself on, is that I'm trying to create a style that is to knock out everybody. Each style that comes into the ring, I make a plan to take them out. But I just got my opponent changed, and all I got to do is go into my back pocket change a couple things that I thought I was going to do. And, and then also, too, you got to feel him out in the ring and see what he really is like. And then I'm going to find some way to take this guy out.
And hi there, hi Austin, it's Kojo speaking here. So yeah, pleasure meeting you, and again, thanks for coming onto the podcast today. So I guess really just to talk on, you're speaking about the switch of opponents, and the way you're kind of addressing it. You're still quite calm, not really sort of frustrated. It seems, and I guess does that show the kind of, I guess, one, the promise, but two, how you handle such big sort of like tests early in your career. I mean, you fought at MSG, you're about to fight at DO2. You've also fought in LA in a big arena. Obviously, the kind of promotion that comes with Matchroom, you seem to be, again, handling that quite well. I guess, does that show the kind of person we're getting to see in the flesh in terms of the calmness and how, I mean, do you feel that's a good thing to receive quite early in your career?
Yes, I think that's amazing for me to receive in my career, because in the 3 years that I've been doing it before I turned pro in my fourth year, I was an amateur and I was around professional boxing all the time. My coach is actually a professional coach. He only had me as an amateur. Now that I'm not an amateur no more, he doesn't have amateurs anymore. So I was always alongside him with his professional fighters, and I always got to see, hey, your opponent really isn't set until you step foot in that ring on the night of the fight with him across from you. That's the only time that you have a set opponent. So when I'm training, every day I wake up, I'm not training for a guy. I'm training for those world championship fights down the line. I'm not training for, exactly these guys that I'm going to fight in my first 10, 15 fights. I'm training for the when it's number one against number two, time to unify the belts and things like that, where I'm fighting guys who have had the same hunger and drive as me. I don't think it's anybody with the same hunger and drive as me, but people who are close, And so when things like this happen, my mindset is already to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
I don't get bummed out on a slight change because I know boxing is just so up in the air. If you let little things like that affect you and change your mindset, change your mentality. Like I said, say I got this new fighter and now my goal is changed because I got a new fighter. That means that my mindset is not that strong. My belief in myself is not that strong, because you should be able to, what I'm saying I want to do is to be able to knock out anybody. If I go and say, I'm not going to try to knock him out, I'm not blah, 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 that means I let a slight change my actual goal and my actual, what I want to do. So you can't let, that does display my calmness and my professionalism that I bring to Matchroom. I think this is a good test for me.
Definitely, and I guess you speaking about that in terms of your journey and your plan. I think Eddie Hearn recently said that in the next 2, maybe 3 years, he wants to see you fighting 4 titles. And obviously, whilst you've been in the UK, you've sparred with the likes of Callum Smith, or you at least trained with him. I mean, again, when you hear that, knowing that this is a guy that you've won, you've won Golden Gloves championships locally. You're now on the big stage of MSG and now sparring with world champions at the elite level and potentially, fighting for those titles in 2 to 3 years. I mean, one, how do you keep yourself grounded in terms of the hard work? But two, how promising does it feel to you?
I keep myself grounded because I never forget what got me here. A lot of people say, he has to be a natural athlete. He has to be born with this ability and X, Y, Z. Yes, I do have athleticism, and as you know, thousands of fighters have athleticism, coordination, and things of that nature, even punching power. We're born with that. A lot of people have it, But my consistency, dedication, working out harder than professionals when I was only 2 and 3 months in, and making sure I did that extra mile and making sure I jump rope that extra minute and making sure I listened to the fundamentals and didn't get away from it. That's what's responsible for all of this. You know, that is what really is responsible for all of this. And I'm happy because a lot of fighters get a little recognition and they start to believe their own hype. You know, people saying they're this and they're that and blah, blah, blah. And then a fighter starts thinking that they can skip a run because they just that good and X, Y, Z. No, we're all kind of close to the same level. And that's one thing that Barry Hearn said to me. And like, if you heard the interview, I was saying Barry Hearn reassured me on a lot of things that I already had in mind. A lot of us are pretty close, you know. But what sets us apart is effort and what we are going to do in our spare time, what we're going to do when we're tired, and how focused we are. And when the crowd's not watching and when people aren't patting you on the back saying, great job, you're this, you're that, what are you doing? Yeah. I knew what I was doing. I was in the gym. I was missing parties. I was missing birthday parties with my friends. I was missing going out and drinking. I couldn't do any of that for years. In my prime years, my prime youth years, I started boxing at 19, 20, 21. That's when all my friends are just discovering alcohol and weed and partying and being able to be out on their own. They're not in their family, parents' house no more and stuff like that. You know, that's when everybody's going nuts. Yeah. And I'm sitting in a gym doing something that I don't know. I didn't know 2 years ago, 3 years ago this was going to happen. You know, I had to just go off a vision that I just had to go off faith. I just had to believe in something that I couldn't physically see or touch at the time, but I knew I had the potential to do it. So having all this stuff happen to me fast, I believe I deserve it, and I believe what makes me deserve it is the hard work. So that's why I'll never get away from it, ever.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And again, we were saying, you know, you sparred with the likes of Callum Smith, but when you look at your division, super middleweight is probably again one of the most kind of stacked division. It's kind of going under the radar, but when you look at the champions, and you look at the kind of crop that are coming through, to see yourself challenging there within the next 2 years, it must be really. Again, must be not just promising, but must be really exciting.
And you know what? I'm not going to be fighting super middle. I'm actually going to be fighting light middleweight, which is another big thing of why, you know, a confidence booster of me being able to stay in the ring with guys like Beterbiev and Callum Smith is because I'm going to be fighting at 164.
Okay.
You know? And I really had to go in the toolbox. I really had to do different things because I'm not bigger than those guys, so I couldn't get hit by those guys. I didn't want to sit there and slug. So I had to really think of, you know, I really had to go into my toolbox and box them and you know, land good shots and capitalize on good shots. But it wasn't, you know, they were bigger. They were a lot bigger. Which is a risk for me, but that's the only way that you get great things. So the crop that you should be looking at when you look at ammo and potential matchups and stuff is 154, 160.
Okay.
And I think later on in my life, you know, 30s, when I'm really burly and a man, you know, like truly just got that triple G type manhood on me.
Yeah.
That's when I'll most likely move up to 68 because I'm not going to worry about being the bigger, you know, Triple G, you tell he doesn't worry about being the bigger guy in the ring because he just knows his skill so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, later on in life, I may go up to 68.
Oh, cool.
Well, I mean, in terms of like 154 pounds, you know, things are really exciting at the moment. You must have taken a lot of notice of the Cheeseman Fitzgerald fight from the weekend. Obviously, you were up in the northeast, greeted by the Geordie fans. I mean, what was your take on that fight?
I think Cheeseman made a terrible adjustment in the fight. He was outboxing Fitzgerald. It was Fitzgerald, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was outboxing Fitzgerald beautifully. I'd say the first 5 to 6 rounds. And then it was, I think in the 7th round, Cheeseman stopped and just started, you know, standing in the pocket and going blow for blow with Fitzgerald, which is clearly the style that Fitzgerald wants. and of course he feels like he's a bigger puncher, so that's where he wants to get him, you know. And it was no rush. It's a 12-round fight where you literally can win on points. And to outbox somebody 12 rounds is probably the easiest way to get that check and that belt. But I guess he didn't have the discipline, or he felt, I don't know, you never know. He may have felt that it wasn't working. He may have felt that he was losing the rounds. His trainers may have felt it. Just a lot of things that go into it. But from me watching ringside, I was very impressed with Cheeseman the first 6 rounds. I thought that he was going to take it home easily. You know, and some of the rounds were close, but I had him edging it out just on ring generalship alone. And then when he stopped, and that's the thing, in the middle of a fight, if you stop and you let it turn around and it starts looking like Fitzgerald's fight, now it's going to just seem like Fitzgerald's plan has worked the whole time. That it takes away from your beautiful 6 rounds. Now people are going to say, oh, maybe he was just wearing them down. Maybe he was letting them move around. Maybe he was blah, blah, blah. Because what matters in a fight is the later half, if it goes the distance. You know, the first 3-4 rounds, that's kind of throwaway rounds. It's classical fighters who used to throw away the first couple of rounds just to see what you had, like Julio Cesar Chavez. You know, he wasn't worried about winning the first, second, even third round. He just wanted to see what you had, and then he'll come on and destroy you for the last 9, or possibly knock you out. I think that's the type of effect that fight had, because Fitzgerald was doing all this beautiful boxing, and towards the end, he's in the slugfest, getting clipped and looking like he was ready to quit on the 12th round. If I was a judge, I would have started, when I seen that 180, that turn of events, I would have started scoring the rounds for Fitzgerald. And that's just my honest opinion on the fight.
Well, we appreciate that. And I guess, so again, you're doing the tour. Just talk to us a bit about your stay in London. I mean, I know you've done the sightseeing, but have you been able to sort of like get in touch with any boxing gyms? Where are you training? Are you around any fighters at the moment?
The 2 gyms that I've been to is Amir Khan's Academy. I love that place, for Callum. And in Peacock, I met about 3 or 4 fighters in Peacock that I got to work with. And, that the United Kingdom has a different style than United States, but these guys kind of emulated a United States style, which was cool for me to see. They all became my good friends over at Peacock. I mean, that gym was amazing for me. They really took us in, me and my team and Regis's team. They allowed us to go into their private room and work out and offered us sparring and all types of things. And that's such a beautiful experience where you can go to another country and have the same respect as you have in your own hometown. That's beautiful. And I love the respect that's, circulating through the boxing community at all times, because we all know what it takes to be a fighter. And then not only that, all the people who was willing to do interviews. And when I went to Rathbone, I went to Rathbone Gym. I got some good interviews with Fight Hype UK, and I met a lot of media people from the UK over there. That was really cool. I was doing something, actually, Eddie was laughing. I remember on my first couple of nights here, I was in East London. I was walking around at night, and I was talking. I was saying motivational things, but Eddie Hearn sent me a message. He was telling me, he was like, go home. Everybody was like, go home. It was funny. They was like, "Yeah, you're on the wrong side of town to be walking around at 4 o'clock." But that was a funny little experience. And I mean, it's just been beautiful, dude. My whole trip here has been beautiful. I met so many people. I met a beautiful girl here. Oh my goodness, I love the accent too, man.
Yeah, got to elaborate on that, Ammo. Obviously, up in Newcastle, I saw you were trying to put across the US charm to the Geordie lasses.
Yeah, you know what, man? It was funny. It was caught on camera, but it was initially just supposed to be a compliment. You know, if I see something I like, or I see something that somebody has that's amazing, like some beautiful eyes, I'll tell them, you know, hey, you got some beautiful eyes. But the camera was there, you know, I'm a showman, so I went ahead and had some fun. I was like, you know what, Coogan was there. I actually met Coogan for the first time getting on a private jet, and so we already had chemistry. And so I just seen the camera out, and I was like, let me make a play. Let me do something that's gonna help the channel. And it was fun. She was a good sport about it and everything. So it was just fun, you know.
No, yeah. Definitely, that's really good to hear, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed the stay. And I mean, obviously, the key thing is Saturday night. The career moves forward with another win, no matter who it may be. Obviously, you're here to, I guess, from a camp perspective, obviously support your American brother, Regis Prograis. How's he looking? How's he feeling? And how excited should the fans be for this fight this weekend?
I've been in camp with Regis for the entire time. And this is the second camp that I've done with Regis. This is the first time that we did an 8-week camp together. I mean, every day we've been together. And his mentality, his focus, everything is on a different level for this fight. He's working harder than I've ever seen before. And I know this might sound biased, you know, I'm sure this is what you expect to hear, but I'm being honest. I think it's just more on the line for him. So he's tapped into a different energy. And he's just looking really sharp, really crisp. And I think what's the main thing for him right now is his mental focus. It's sharper than I've ever seen before. And also, too, he's been away from his family. He sacrificed things. He's been here. He's been in another country. He's fighting in front of another fan base that he's never fought in front of. This is his first time, just like me. He's got a lot of stuff to take on. He got a statement to be made. Josh Taylor said a lot of things, you know, where I think that Josh Taylor may be underestimating Regis. And I'm in the gym with Regis. I'm in the ring with Regis firsthand. I do not take hits from Regis because Regis has the strongest size to punching power ratio I've ever felt. And for me to say that, and I pride myself on my punching power, for me to say that says a lot. Regis, his punching power is insane. And I think a lot of guys might see it on video and they might see it, you know, on highlights, and they might think like, oh, this guy wasn't this guy wasn't that. Josh Taylor will see in the ring when he takes that left hand. You know what? I think that he has a punching power that you can't get ready for. And you can't process it because it's different. It's like a bell ringing power. And I don't think Josh Taylor is going to be able to take it. I think that he's going to get hit by one of those shots and he's going to crumble, or he's going to panic, or he's going to get knocked out by the first couple shots. And he talks about Regis hasn't fought anybody. If you look at Regis, it was a lot of times where he was put on, like in America, it's a thing called showbox. And Regis was picked to be like the underdog, the B side. You know, and I think that's one thing they looked at him as, like, oh, his power can't be this, his power can't be that, and he knocked guys out like silly, knocked them stupid. This is real young undefeated prospects who feel like they can take on the world. It's no doubt when you're in that segment of life or in your boxing career, you're not going to take a dive. You know that every fight is everything. You know, this is you potentially being champion of the world. So if you get a guy who's knocking prospects out like that, knocking them out silly, then you can't really say who have you fought. You know, look at who he fought. And now he's stronger than he's ever been because he's hitting his prime. And I just don't think Josh Taylor is going to have the right adjustments for Regis, because it's a difference between somebody who can box really well, and it's a difference The difference comes when you get a fighter who can fight and box. And when you get a fighter who can fight and box, I think that instinct inside of you when you're a fighter allows you to make a lot more adjustments than just a boxer. When you're only a boxer, you only have a certain amount of things to do because it's a technical thing. You're technically encased. But when you're a fighter, it's just almost like, I got to find a way to get this guy out of here. I'm going to use what I got, and then I'm going to improvise on top of that. And that's what I think that Regis has really well. And I think Josh Taylor is not going to be. I don't see Josh Taylor making it through this fight. I see a knockout, man. I'm telling you.
And Amma, I was going to ask to that point, and obviously I think the number one thing, which is like the elephant in the room, is that typically American fighters come over and they believe to get the decision they need to go for the knockout. So I guess it sounds like that's key in Regis Prograis' thoughts. But I think in terms of the opponents, I think that's when, and I say to people, for me, this is a very tough fight. It's a close fight. I think the tangibles you mentioned in terms of a more known, slicker boxer against somebody that can box but can fight, can bring the dog. I think people forget that their division didn't have much stars. I mean, for a long time, it was just Crawford. But I think if you look at the fact that, Kyle Rillick, a guy that Prograis stopped, he hadn't been stopped before. He was a guy that came in with a decent reputation. In Dongo, again, only stopped by Crawford. No shame in that. So I think sometimes people, when they say, oh, who have you fought? I think you also have to say, well, who is there to fight? Who is there that's going to make you ultimately always stand out? Do you know what I mean? There's just guys that are good, but they're not going to make you stand out. Right. So, right. I think it's going to be...
I completely agree with that whole statement, man.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this fight. And for me, I think, it's good to see that you guys are here. Hope to see more American fighters. We're looking at the sort of publicity you guys are getting, and it's been great. So we look to see more of it. I don't know if you went to the Spurs game on the weekend, but if you didn't, well, definitely I need to get you to the Emirates because that's the rival, and that'll be more suited to you. But one thing I just want to get your thoughts on, and obviously it's slightly a side subject, but we didn't get to touch on it last week, was obviously the passing of Patrick Day last week. Obviously, somebody that was in and around the American gyms. I'm sure your paths crossed. I mean, how sad was that for the boxing community? But again, how proud were you in terms of how the boxing community sort of stepped up and kind of came together for that tragic loss?
It's extremely tough for any fighter to hear about somebody losing their life because we all know that we're doing the exact same thing. And we all know that we're at risk. We're reminded of it every day. We're reminded of it before we fight. I mean, for us, for matchroom fighters, I can speak on me. We got to sign our life insurance, before the fight, so you get a pure reminder of what you signed up for. And to see it actually happen, see it actually happen when you're submerged in the same thing, it's tough. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's tough, but I love how much the boxing world, like you said, has come together, has paid respect to this man. And no, you haven't seen any slander. I haven't seen any slander or bad talk about this kid. Everybody, I mean, people who don't even know him have shown him love. Jamal Charlo reached out to pay for his whole way. It's such a tragedy, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show the love that's within this sport. Yeah. Because everybody's broken. Everybody's heart broke a little bit. It broke a lot, no matter what the scale is for you. Your heart broke a little bit for the kid.
Exactly. And his family.
You just know what goes into this. You know the dedication that goes into this, and you know what his family is going through and things like that. So it's always tough. It's tough for a fighter. And I also, not only that, but I think that these types of things bring more awareness to brain scanning and really looking out after these fighters more and regulating boxing more and things of that nature, because we got to turn and see what's the underlying causes of this. You're a fighter, but you're not getting your brain checked constantly because that's just something that's not offered to you, or that's just something that's too expensive. We got to come up with some type of program or something where fighters can get these things all the time.
Yeah.
However they set it up, the boxing world has to come together and really. It's hard because our sport is so historical, and fighters have been doing it the same way for centuries. But us as an advanced, race of human beings, we are advanced, and our generation coming up is very advanced. We need to really start looking into finding a program or something where fighters get a brain scan every 2 months. Every 6 months, whatever we can do, and use situations like this to really, show the world and show the medical world the importance of that.
I think the saddest thing about it is really that we probably will never know what really happened, because obviously with the risks of being a fighter so high, like you mentioned there, having more thorough brain scans, having people within the boxing industry really sign up to this rigorous program to really eradicate the risks of the sport. It's really tough to really nail down what was the main cause of this. There's a lot of fighters out there that probably go through like having to deplete themselves in terms of weight. I'm sure you probably understand yourself as a fighter having to make weight. How difficult is it really to pin down what causes can be eliminated from this game being so tough as it is already?
It's extremely tough because you can be absolutely perfect and just get hit with the wrong shot, get knocked out, and hit your head on the canvas wrong. It could be nothing wrong with your brain, no hemorrhage, no swelling, no anything.
Yeah.
The actual event and what can happen in the fight can be something that can take you out. So I know that's a big argument. I know that's a big downside of all of the monitoring and stuff of fighters, because people in the medical field gonna feel like, okay, we're doing all this monitoring, but you're stepping into a situation where the actual deadly thing can happen right then and there, no matter how healthy you are. So
but
I know
think.
that.
Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, carry on. You're the pro.
Oh no. So I was saying, I think it's gonna be tough to pin. It'll always be tough to figure out the actual cause of these things, because unless they have say they did scan your brain and they found bleeding in your brain, right? Then you wouldn't be fighting.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't be fighting. So we can't. If something happens in a fight and they doing all of the scans and stuff like that, there's no way for them to, really say, oh, this was this and this was that. Because if they do all the scans and they take you out of boxing because of bleeding in the brain and stuff, then that's just going to completely cut, cut us being able to say, oh, maybe this kid already had bleeding in the brain. Maybe this kid already blah, 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 X, Y, Z.
Yes.
And I think it's just too much money involved, too many fights that have to happen and things like that for even promoters and crap to want that to happen. That's just that's the sad side of the game. But, just like what happened today, a kid pulled out of my fight, and my promotional company is very invested in me. So, but they want me to just come here and not fight? No. And they have to be able to just pick up guys just right away. Now, when they picking up this guy right away, they're not checking him and making sure his brain is fine and making sure, everything is good with the kid. He didn't suffer anything in his last fight. No, they're not checking that. They just asking, do you want to fight? Is he cleared to fight? And can you sign the contract? Do you want the money? And if they get if they get very strict and a lot of fighters get off the market, then I know that's going to be bad on promoters, So maybe even that. Maybe that might even be something that's really, standing in the way of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
and I was going to say, Austin, because I think you touched on a good point. I think it's definitely tough to pinpoint, but I think it's about potentially just showing that we're reviewing it, you're looking into it, and maybe a process of an elimination. I think scans in between fights are good. I think there probably just isn't enough unity within the sport on a global level, which is always going to be tough. But I think at the end where we know there's a big pay scale, there's big fights, we're talking about the champion, you're fighting for titles at the very least. I think there should be a slightly more of a process, if possible, where there's just more scans. Because, again, if a guy's in a tough fight, but, he could be having some type of internal bleeding 4 months later, again, because it's for the money, he's back in the ring. You don't know what can happen, so we can never blame it. And I think the key thing is our thoughts go out to sort of Patrick Day, his family, his loved ones, and obviously his friends that knew him, because I'm sure they're deeply missing him. So Amo, listen, last point I guess really we just wanted to say is, do you want to just shout out your social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that?
Yes, man. Everybody follow me. Instagram is Instagram, Twitter, and my website is all Ammo Williams. The website is ammowilliams.com. I'm coming out with a YouTube real soon. That's going to be Ammo Williams as well, where I put up a lot of things, day in the life and my roads to these fights and, things that cover like my journeys out to UK and things like that. I know all the fans really want to see that, so be on the lookout for that to come out. That's pretty much it. Facebook, Ammo Williams too. That's about it.
Perfect. So listen, good luck on the weekend. I'm sure you're going to hopefully get the great news and get a great victory. It would be great to maybe, if we can, maybe we'll come out to you guys, maybe get another interview just on the post-fight. But definitely looking forward to seeing how your career progresses moving forward, and all the best for Saturday. Yes,
thank you guys so much for the time. I appreciate it. Thank you for the publicity. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, Tom. So, good interview, man. You can see this is a young boxer that's got not a lot to say for himself, not in the cheeky or arrogant way, but he's got strong confidence and he's smart, sort of like good head on his shoulder. So, really interesting conversation there. So let's run through the fights before everyone goes through. So I think we've got to start Prograis Taylor after the Beterbiev review. What's your thoughts on that fight this weekend, Tom?
Well, yeah, no, even like Amo touched on in the interview, it's often a saying in boxing, a cliche. It's the shots you don't see that do the most damage, and I think Regis Prograis probably demonstrated that in his last few fights. Like you said, the win against Carol Relic was a win that really projected himself onto the big stage and really showed that he is a formidable puncher, just as well as a boxer that he credits himself for. So I generally can't pick this one. It's a 50-50 fight that I think, if you look at throughout the course of the year, fights that have been put together really coined as 50-50 matchups, you probably won't get any more closer to one than this. I think Josh Taylor comes into this fight with a lot of momentum. I've said that about his last few fights. The step up in class. He's had back-to-back consecutive wins against top quality opponents. But I think if I'm going to sway towards someone, it's probably going to be Josh Taylor. I think on experience, I think what he's gained thus far, I think his style, his ring generalship, his IQ is really that of someone who's probably past just being a world champion, someone that's gone on to win multiple world titles at multiple weights. So, I'm really looking forward to it this weekend. It's hard to choose, hard to call. I can make a case for both. So.
Yeah, no, and on that, I'm going to try to make the case for Prograis. I think I was leaning towards Prograis. I won't lie, there's in the build-up, I've been going back and forth. I've been looking at a lot of fights, and there is a little win in it, and that's why I kind of said, who was there to fight when Taylor says you fought nobody? Because, if you were to go back and say when Josh Taylor beat Ahara Davis WBC silver champion. He was going into that year, what is probably like was one of the hottest prospects, and I think we could probably say he's not delivered on that sort of like promise that was being projected back then.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, you know, who in terms of availability, I think you've got to give Prograis more credit than, and I'm glad that actually William said this. I think he's being underrated because wins like Rillick and Indongo are big wins. I know
they are big wins, definitely.
Rillick had a close fight with Burns and lost, but that was a very close fight, and you could probably, I mean, I wouldn't say there was a case for him to win, but it was a lot closer than the scorecards had it. That's one thing I remember. Indongo had only lost to Crawford, who was a beast, and Indongo came on the scene with as a big power puncher, knocking out Trovanovski early doors. So for me, I started to think about it, and I thought, you know what, Prograis, one thing that he's done against taller fighters, because again, you know, Taylor has the size in terms of height and reach advantage, but what Prograis does really well, maybe it's because he's fighting orthodox as opposed to southpaw, is that he really closes the distance and he shifts and bobs and weaves at close distance really well and is able to counter to a strong effect. So I think where this also is an interesting fight for me is, and this is one thing I'm not sure of, is how does Josh Taylor deal with southpaws? Because he himself is a southpaw, and usually he has the advantage going up against the orthodox boxer. So how will he face against a southpaw who is shorter, so he will struggle to potentially hit the target? So I think overall, listening to Amo speak about the power, I think I'm starting to lean even more heavily to Prograis, because I think they know they need to get the knockout to win. And definitely, as you led into your sort of like speech, was that really, for me, it's the shots that don't see you that will hurt you. And I think Josh Taylor's definitely coming for a fight. I think mentally he's a bit agitated, which for me is never really a great sign. I think he wants it not too much, but I think he's overlooking the opponent, because Prograis probably doesn't have a name of a Crawford. Do you know what I mean? But my question to Taylor would be, if you weren't fighting Prograis, in my opinion, is the number one or number two in the division, who else would you fight? So it's not about who he's fought. This is one of your toughest competitors in your division. So focus on what's in front of you and not what's behind him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that fight. I think it's going to be. I really think it's going to be. I think it's going to deliver. In no two ways about it. I think it's going to deliver because of Taylor's skill set. You know, he is a slick boxer. He puts his shots together really well. But I think he can get hit. So that's where I see Prograis having success. Clearly. But for the knockout. I think also on that card we've got Chisora versus Price. I mean, this is again another. You could argue this is another pick 'em fight for different reasons. What's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I'm going to edge towards Chisora on this one. I think with this new brand, War Chisora, his mentality, his preparation is a lot stronger than what he has proven in the past. I think Price is, again, it's the occasion. How much is that going to get to him? Is he going to be able to adapt? Is he going to be able to control Chisora's aggression coming forward? I mean, these guys were tipped to fight each other years ago, and I think now the perfect time is for Chisora to get a win of this stature and move on. I think he's a lot more motivated. He seems a lot more agile, a lot more mobile, and I think he can cause Price problems if he gets on the inside early, works the body, and try and really put it on Price, because you know what Price is like. He's considered one of the biggest punchers, but again, it's how he's going to able to cope on the night. Is he going to have the balance of performing and also just kind of blocking out all the outside influence to really focus on the job at hand? So I'm gonna swing towards Chisora on this one.
Yeah, and again, it's a tough one, because I also half feel that half of me feels that Chisora could be overlooking Price. I think for Price, whilst if we look at his sort of last 4 or 5 fights, you would argue clear it should be a Chisora win. But I think with Chisora, it's always which Chisora turns up. I don't know if there should be any red flags around the fact he doesn't really have a trainer. We don't know who's really going to be in his corner. And the reason I say it is because, again, from a Price perspective, as much as Chisora is a bit more of a bulldozer, brawler type fighter, I think if Price can do what everyone's always asked him to do, which is just use your jab, I think he will make it a bit of a frustrating night for Chisora, because Chisora struggles to get inside of people's jabs. You know, we've seen that, although he's fought world-class opponents, but we've seen the number one thing they've done is make sure they've kept their jab at length. Even in some of the Dillian White fights, that's what Dillian White was doing. So, yeah, but I'm with you. I want to go for Chisora, but something's telling me that we could see a bit of an upset. We could see a bit of an upset, especially if there's not a knockout. And is there going to be a knockout? Well, hard to say. In my opinion, it is hard to say. You would hope so, but it could also be one of those fights. If Price just sticks at the jab, because you know he's going to be thinking to himself. You know, there's announcements of the WBO. You know, both guys are going to want to think to themselves they can get in with a shot for a world title opportunity, and you would argue that Price is probably more of a valuable asset than Chisora in terms of Price's ability to sell tickets if he can go in a good run of form. So it's going to be an interesting one. But I think, like you, I'm going to go with Chisora. So moving on, we're going to move on to the Ricky Burns versus Lee Selby. Again, another domestic dust-up.
Another class fight.
Yeah. If you're a bit of a boxing pugilist, you'll like this one because it's all about that re-emergence of Lee Selby. I mean, I think going into this, when I heard that this fight was being announced, I was a bit surprised. Not because Ricky Burns is a dangerous opponent, but I think Ricky Burns would raise his game for the opportunity to fight at the O2 on a big night against a quality operator like Lee Selby. So, I mean, from your point of view, is it important that Lee Selby, and I'm going to say it bluntly, is it important that he probably stops Ricky Burns to kind of show that he's levels above and he's got higher ambitions?
Yeah, I'd expect to see a dominant performance, but like you said, a re-emergence is probably the best way to describe this one, really, because Ricky Burns, in all fairness, hasn't really got anything left to prove because he's done it all. He's freeweight world champion, whereas Lee Selby's coming off the back of a kind of a run of form where you think how much motivation has he got left to ignite his push for world honours. But I think, like you said, moving up 2 weights might have done him the world of good, made him a stronger fighter. He's obviously gone out to LA to do some sparring out at the Wildcard gym. So, I mean, if you kind of put all them aspects together, you'd expect to see Selby really kind of with the freshness and the youth to come through that. And I think with Burns, he's probably thinking, if I can get a win over Selby, I might have another chance at a world title shot. Whereas I think Selby, he beats Burns, he's then kind of looking at that as a positive moving forward, that he's got a win of that stature. He can move on. He can challenge then maybe another world title eliminator, or go straight back in at lightweight into the deep end and maybe challenge for a version of the world title. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it's just how much either fighter's got left. How much do they want to prove to themselves that they can stick at world level and really be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, when I think from Burns' perspective, it is an opportunity to get, you know, again, under the lights and a payday, but again, raise your game for a worthy opponent. But for Selby, I think, yeah, again, if he doesn't show, you know, an impressive performance, for me, I think when I look at that division, obviously you've got Lomachenko that's kind of reigning supreme, but you've still got Commey, who's also a world champion, rightly so. You've got Devin Haney, who's now in the mix. You've got Lopez. There are fighters in that division, you know, Mario Barrios. You've got guys there that, you know, that are around that area. Mario versus division above. That are tough fights, you know. So yeah, I think for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens and how that fight kind of goes out and how it plays out for Selby. Because yeah, he's a man that if he can kind of rise to the top again, I think he would be one of those interesting fighters that we all like to get behind. So other than that, I think obviously we've paid our tributes to Pat Day, which obviously was a sad passing. And you know, our thoughts go out to his family and his friends. I think from the boxing world, the other news to talk about was obviously the Matchroom show. I think you asked Ammo Williams the question around Cheeseman. What were your thoughts on that Cheeseman Fitzgerald fight?
Yeah, it was a bit of a controversial ending, to say the least. I think Cheeseman boxed the perfect opening 6 rounds, but then really it's a matter of whether did he let it slip, did he get a bit too complacent that he bagged the first 6 and thought he could kind of, nick a few rounds here and there. I thought he won, in terms of the first 5 rounds, he won 4-1. I thought Fitzgerald looked a bit flat. He didn't look his usual sharp self, but I think when the pressure got to him sort of down the stretch, knowing that he had to really take the fight to Cheeseman, he started to come out of the blocks a lot quicker, and I thought he definitely won the last 3 or 4 rounds. So it's a matter of where, do you kind of settle for Cheeseman's control boxing, or do you favour the come forward volume of work that Fitzgerald just showed in the last few rounds? And I think as well you've got to take into consideration the boxing politics with this one. Obviously people want to see the rematch between Fowler and Fitzgerald. Cheeseman never has really got the rub of the green from Sky and the way they've kind of analysed the fight. But I think really you can't really argue with I personally thought Cheeseman nicked it, but you couldn't argue a draw, and I don't think you could probably argue a 1 or 2 rounds either way for Fitzgerald. I just think it was one of those fights where Cheeseman kind of looked in control, but then let it slip a bit. And I think Fitzgerald then kind of just took advantage and capitalised on that. The fact that Cheeseman was able to kind of sit off him and not really throw as many punches as what he'd done prior to the sort of 7th, 8th round. And I think Fitzgerald used that as fuel to kind of catch the eye of the judges for that work rate.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right on that. I think Cheeseman started well. I think the key thing was when Fitzgerald was able to land his more power shots, it just seemed that they phased Cheeseman a little bit, and I just felt, I know some people felt that he was running. I think, look, it's good movement, but
yeah, we're not used to Cheeseman on the back foot.
Yeah, exactly, and then because it wasn't sustained in the later rounds, so you kind of saw him slow down.
Yeah.
I can see why. I did think, again, like you, I don't know if it's because I think Cheeseman is a decent little fighter, so I don't know whether I was a bit more I had a bit of favoritism for him, but yeah, I thought that it was close, especially when I heard the way the scorecards went. I felt, that, some of them were close. Bit disappointed with the way he rushed out, but yeah, again, it's an emotional sport, so probably it's better he did that than he kind of started kicking a fuss up in the ring. So move on from there, and yeah, we'll see that rematch. It's probably looking likely now. We'll see that rematch, Fowler, Fitzgerald. Let the guys get a big payday, and it'll probably do an MEN arena or something like that. So no, looking forward to that. And this weekend, obviously we've got the big one as we discussed. But yeah, I think it should be another opportunity for the UK to kind of showcase a quality boxing night for not just the American fighters taking part, but for the American fans watching overseas.
Definitely.
Yeah. So listen, we're going to make a move. I appreciate we've got this interview with Amma Williams. Thanks again Tom for joining the show, and look forward to being in the studio next week when we should have a couple more guests, and we'll look out for some more exciting news. So as always, 100%. Guys, don't forget to follow Raps on TV, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can subscribe and help us grow. We really appreciate that. Take care, guys.
Take care.